Unlock the shocking truth. 7 dark secrets of positive thinking that haunt you forever. In a world ablaze with relentless optimism, there lurked an unsettling darkness. Can you feel it? Like the pressure of a storm brewing just beyond the horizon, poised to unleash chaos. The first secret whispered through the crowded halls of self-help seminars. Positive thinking can become a burden too heavy to carry. People wearing oversized smiles, eyes hollow, relentless waves of pressure mounting as they force themselves to chase happiness at all costs. Day and night, these unyielding affirmations stampeded through their minds, trampling any flicker of genuineness. Then, there was talk of the uncanny connection between positivity and denial. Families torn apart by tragedies swept under the rug, as if glossing over the mess could somehow patch their hearts. The absence of grief bestowed as a badge of honor pain was considered weakness, a failure in the quest for some idealized bliss. What about that simmering resentment bubbling just beneath the surface? A collective gnashing of teeth that echoed in every corner, every shared laugh doused in bitterness, every unspoken word hanging thick in the air. Eyes darting nervously, rumors buzzed of lost friendships due to relentless positivity. Conversations reduced to hollow exchanges, where real emotions risked being devoured by an insatiable need to maintain a facade of joy. Picture a gathering, laughter, applause, and a hidden despair wearing thin masks. In that moment, you could almost hear the silent scream, wrestling to escape from behind locked smiles, hearts thrashing with anguish, and those who strayed? They bore the stigma of negativity, branded as pessimists, shunned for daring to unearth the uncomfortable truths hidden beneath the surface. Teeters, the insistent pursuit of joy breeding its own kind of sorrow, making enemies of those who dared to feel. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But the strangest of all was the bizarre allure of these secrets, the notion that by ignoring everything grim, one could somehow tiptoe into a world that sparkled with light. And yet, the deeper you dug, the darker it became. What lay ahead? A chilling question hung suspended in the air like static electricity. How far would one go to maintain that delusion of happiness? The night grew thicker, shadows stretching over brightly lit rooms. Outside the cheerful facades, where laughter echoed like a false promise, something unsettling began to fester just below the surface. As the laughter echoed, it mingled with a tension so thick, it felt like a heavy fog you could cut with a knife. This wasn't just a gathering of happy people. It was a masquerade party where everyone wore their smiles like armor, and yet, the truth simmered like raw meat beneath those glowing displays. At the center of it all stood Claire, her heart racing like a wild horse trapped in a barn. She had long been a staunch believer in the bright side of life, repeating mantras and affirmations with fervency. But that night, the energy felt off. A gnawing doubt curled in the pit of her stomach. Why did it feel like everyone was hiding? Why did her laughter sound distant, as if it belonged to someone else? Caught between intelligence and ignorance, she couldn't shake the hushed whispers lurking in the corners. Did you hear about Sara? One woman had said just an hour ago, her voice dripping with curiosity. She couldn't handle it anymore. The rest of the room had erupted in uneasy, nervous laughter, too afraid of the truth that threatened to break through. Now, as Claire clutched her glass of bright pink punch, she wondered if Sara had been right all along to question the facade. The constant push for positivity had cultivated more than just joy. It had bred an epidemic of suppression. What if, in silencing the darkness, they had buried something vital, something real that needed to be heard? Suddenly, the air shifted. The buzz of conversation dimmed, leaving a chilling silence, and Claire felt a shiver race down her spine. There, just beyond the brightly decorated archway, she spotted him. Mark. He was standing alone, a slight frown tugging at his lips. Unlike the others, His eyes sparkled with something other than joy. There was pain there. It pierced through the hollow exclamations of happiness, clutching at the edges of her mind. Stepping away from her overly cheerful companions, Claire felt drawn to him, compelled by an instinct that screamed there was more to uncover. As she approached, she hesitated. The rest of the crowd faded into a blur, their laughter distant echoes amidst her pounding heart. "Mark?" she called, her voice barely above a whisper. The look he gave her, sharp, desperate, made her stomach twist. "You don't see it, do you?" he muttered, glancing around as if the very walls were listening. "All this, it's a trap. You can't keep pretending forever." He leaned in closer. "There is something I need to show you. Something they don't want any of us to see." His words hung in the air, thick with urgency. Claire's pulse quickened. She wasn't ready for the layers of truth he hinted at. This could unravel everything she believed. Did she really want to venture into that chasm? But in that instant, as the weight of his gaze anchored her feet, a chilling realization dawned upon her. What had she been so desperate to avoid? Was it time to confront the darker shadows lurking in her own heart? "Yes," she breathed. "What is it?" With that question, Claire took a step closer to the truth, drawing herself deeper into the web of secrets, maternal fear and hope battling within her. And as Mark turned away, beckoning her to follow, she felt the profound tremors of dread mingling with the thrill of discovery. What awaited them in the dark corners they were about to explore? The storm was just beginning to brew. Would she have the strength to face it? Claire followed Mark through the throng of merriment, the swirling colors, laughter, and music fading into an eerie background hum. Her heart thrummed violently against her ribcage, as if it sensed the danger that lay ahead. Every instinct told her to turn back, to slip back into the safety of the smiles and cheerful chatter. But as they passed beneath the archway, the atmosphere changed. The air grew heavier, almost smothering. Shadows clawed at the edges of her vision, and a distant echo of laughter morphed into something sinister. The tension tightened in her chest. Mark led her down a narrow hallway that seemed to stretch on forever. The walls, adorned with elaborate masks, felt like they were closing in. Claire's throat went dry as an uncomfortable sense of voyeurism washed over her. What secrets did these masks hide? "Here," he said, stopping in front of a door that appeared unremarkable, a stark contrast to the opulence of the party. He glanced over his shoulder, ensuring no one was watching, before pushing it open with a creak that sounded like a warning. Inside, the air was colder, tinged with the musty scent of old wood. Dim light flickered on the far wall from a single bulb hanging by a thread. Claire could feel Mark's eyes on her as she stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind them. "What is this place?" she whispered, her voice echoing in the silence. Mark took a moment, gathering himself. "This is where they keep the discarded truths." He pointed to various objects scattered across the room, torn letters, crumpled photographs, remnants of shattered lives. "And this is just the surface." Claire's heart raced. She picked up a yellowed letter, its ink faded but the pain still palpable. "This is Sara's handwriting," she gasped. "Yes," Mark replied, his voice barely above a murmur. They shamed her for her honesty. She tried to expose the façade, to show everyone what was happening beneath the glitz. But they silenced her. The biting coldness of fear settled around Claire. "What do you mean?" "Silenced her how?" Mark stepped closer, lowering his voice to an urgent whisper. "They don't just ignore the truths, they bury them." Sara tried to leave, but he faltered, his gaze slipping away. "But what?" Claire pressed, her heart pounding wildly. He hesitated before reaching for a crumpled photo at the edge of a dusty table. Pulling it into the light, Claire gasped. It was a group of familiar faces, her smiling friends, all gathered around a sun-drenched table. In the background, a shadow lingered, dark and indistinct. "See that?" Mark pointed at the figure. "There's always someone watching. Always someone waiting to ensure everyone stays in line." Claire shivered, a chill racing down her spine. What if Mark was right? What if all of this, the laughter, the cheer, the encouragement to stay positive, came at a price? Why are we even here? Claire's voice trembled, doubt clawing at her sanity. "What do we do now?" Mark's eyes locked onto hers, filled with resolve. "We uncover the truth. We show them they can't keep lying or hiding anymore. But we need to act quickly," he said, urgency spilling from his lips. "They'll come looking for us soon." As if to punctuate his words, The distant sounds of laughter morphed into something else, a cacophony of tension, an alarm signaling trouble ahead. What had she stepped into? And did she have the resolve to face what lay beyond the door they had just entered? Could she truly unmask the smiles that clung so desperately to the edges of this twisted reality? Without contemplating her next move, Claire felt the desperate urge to find out, but at what cost? The walls seemed to vibrate with an ominous energy as Claire's mind raced, the weight of Mark's revelation thickening the air around them. She could barely breathe. How do we start? The question slipped from her lips, a fragile whisper against the encroaching darkness. Mark stepped back, scanning the room. We need to look closer. These objects, they hold stories. They connect to the people outside, to the ones who think everything is perfect. His hands trembled slightly as he gestured to the scattered remains of forgotten lives. Claire swallowed hard. Each item here was a reminder of hidden pain, discarded for the comforting illusion of happiness. She reached for another object, a cracked mirror, its surface marred and dusty. What about this? She held it to the dim light, seeing her reflection warped and twisted. Look past the imperfections. Mark's voice was steady, but Claire could see the uncertainty deep in his eyes. It'll show you what they don't want you to see. Claire felt a surge of rebellion. She needed to understand. Searching through the artifacts, she found a pile of faded newspapers. Headlines shouted about good times, thriving business, and community achievements, while the smaller text drowned in tales of loss, neglect, and secrets. They paint everything in gold while hiding the rust beneath. She murmured, the revelation hitting her hard. Mark nodded. Exactly. They don't want anyone to know what lies beneath the surface. That's why Sara had to be silenced. She was brave enough to tell the truth. A jumble of thoughts flooded Claire's mind, but one stood out above the rest. Was she brave enough to act? Her eyes caught a glimmer beneath a stack of papers. She pulled out a small, ornate box, intricately carved with strange symbols. Heart racing, she opened it. Inside lay a single key, shining like silver in the dim light. What is that? Mark leaned closer, eyes narrowing. A key, Claire replied, her voice low. But to what? Only one way to find out, he said, a sense of urgency rising in him. We need to keep searching. This key might unlock something important. Before Claire could react, a sudden noise erupted outside the door, a loud crash, followed by hurried footsteps echoing through the hallway. Panic clawed up her throat. They're coming. Mark's eyes widened. We have to hide. He shoved a small cabinet aside, revealing a narrow space behind it. In here, they squeezed into the dark cavity, their bodies pressed tightly together. Claire's breath quickened. She could hear the murmurs of laughter ebbing closer, now twisted with tension. The shadows outside danced against the walls, as if mocking their fear. What if they find us? Claire whispered, her heart pounding painfully. They won't tea if we stay quiet, Mark assured, though his voice betrayed a hint of dread. But we have to be ready. If we're caught, we might never leave. The door creaked open, and Claire held her breath. A group of masked figures flooded into the room, their laughter now chilling, devoid of warmth. They began sifting through the remnants of the past as Claire and Mark barely dared to breathe. They'll discover the truth. Mark hissed, his eyes flashing with bravery and fear. Claire clenched the key tightly in her hand, feeling its smooth surface against her skin. Time felt suspended as they waited, full of dread and anticipation, and then one of the figures turned toward the cabinet. The gaze was impossibly piercing, as if it could see directly into their hiding place. What are they hiding? The voice was distorted, dangerous. The tension was palpable, the air thick with danger. Would they remain hidden, or would they be dragged into the light of the very truths they sought to unmask? As the shadowy figure inched closer, Claire felt a surge of resolve. We have to go. We can't let them find us. But in the chaos, what if they uncovered something more than just secrets? What if they opened a door to horrors far beyond their understanding? With one last shared glance, they knew their fate would soon be decided. A chill rippled through Claire's spine as the figure hovered near the cabinet. The laughter of the masked group echoed eerily, their voices a horror-filled symphony that drowned out her racing heart. Mark held her tightly, his grip both a comfort and a reminder of the looming threat. Do you think they know we're in here? Claire whispered, her voice barely a breath. Mark shook his head, eyes wide and fearful. Not yet. But if we don't move soon, it might be too late. The figure rifled through the clutter, and Claire could only hope they wouldn't notice the subtle shift in shadows where they hid. Each creak of the floorboards sent her pulse racing. And if they catch us? She asked, the dread pooling in her stomach. Mark didn't respond, his focus locked on the masked intruder. The figure reached for a dusty photograph, lifting it into the light. Look at this, it said, voice almost mocking. Can you believe how naive they all were? All smiles, all pretenses. Claire inched closer to Mark, sensing his tautness. She could feel his heart beating in tandem with her own. What if we use the key? She hissed, glancing at the glimmering object in her hand. She had no idea what it unlocked, but the notion of staying hidden and doing nothing felt wrong. Now, are you crazy? Mark's voice was urgent, but his eyes flickered with an idea, maybe even hope. If we have to fight, we need a reason. We can't let their lies win, she asserted. Another figure joined the first, both masked and cloaked in shadows. You think they ever see what we've hidden? One of them chuckled darkly. Claire's breath hitched as the masked figures laughed, their eyes glinting like knives. They were enjoying this a twisted game of cat and mouse. Wait. The first figure froze, the photograph held aloft. Do you hear that? Claire felt a surge of panic. They had heard something, and Mark was right. They couldn't remain in this cramped space forever. Now, Claire urged, with no time to waste. She pulled the key from her pocket and darted out. Mark followed her indeed before the startled glares of the figures registered. The thrill of immediate danger pushed them into the room's shadows. Where are you going? One of the figures shouted, laughter morphing into a roar of outrage. Run, Mark shouted, and they bolted down a narrow hallway that twisted like a greedy serpent. Wait, Claire cried as her mind raced with the possibilities. We need the box. We need to find out what it unlocks. But the deeper they ventured into the building, the more claustrophobic the air became. Dark walls seemed to close in as they sprinted through forgotten rooms filled with specters of the past. Behind them, the footsteps grew louder. They can't get away. A voice screamed. Find them. Claire's legs were on fire, but she pushed harder. There's got to be a way out. Suddenly, she skidded to a halt in front of a heavy door, its iron handle sprawling like a gnarled hand. Mark bumped into her, nearly knocking her over. What now? Do we go through? Holding up the key, Claire felt its coldness pulse against her palm. This could be it. Are you sure? Mark looked torn between fear and the allure of discovery. No, she admitted, but it's better than being trapped with them. Time felt suspended as she slipped the key into the lock. She took a breath, glancing back down the hallway. The figures had appeared, eyes wild behind their masks, making slow strides toward them. Claire, Mark called, urgency in his voice. Hurry up. With a tremble, she turned the key, feeling it resist for a fleeting moment. Then, unexpectedly, it clicked, and the door creaked open, revealing darkness beyond. Let us go, Mark yelled, grabbing her wrist and pulling her through the doorway as shadows flickered threateningly behind them. Just as they plunged into the unknown, the door slammed shut. An echoing silence engulfed them. What now? Claire whispered, trying to catch her breath. In the dark, it was hard to tell where they were or what awaited them. Yet a muted glow pulsed somewhere ahead like a heartbeat. Whatever lies ahead, we need to face it. Together, Mark said resolutely, in that moment of uncertainty, Claire realized the true horrors were always just beginning. And as they stepped further into the abyss, the muffled laughter of the masked figures faded, replaced with a new, eerily calm whispering that promised revelations or nightmares. What awaited them there could change everything, shatter their understanding of the façade they had come to expose. Would they uncover more than they bargained for in the heart of the darkness? As Claire and Mark ventured deeper into the darkness, the pulse of the eerie glow grew stronger, wrapping around them like a willing shroud. Every step echoed with a soft thud, blending into an oppressive silence that heightened the tension in Claire's chest. The whispering swirled around them, faint yet relentless, like the soft scratching of nails against a chalkboard. Do you hear that? Mark breathed, his voice barely a whisper, his wide eyes darting in confusion. It feels alive, Claire replied, feeling the chill settle in the pit of her stomach. The atmosphere thrummed with a horrifying anticipation, as if the very walls were aware of their presence. Just ahead, The faint light deepened into a soft azure, beckoning them with a false sense of safety. Claire felt her heartbeat quicken. What if it led them to salvation? Or worse, what if it revealed something they weren't prepared to face? I don't know what's waiting for us, but we can't turn back, Mark insisted, his determination breaking through the fear. They pressed forward, the light growing closer until they reached a massive room. It was circular, the walls lined with shelves crammed with strange artifacts that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The glow emanated from an old trunk, the source of the haunting illumination resting atop it. "What's that?" Claire asked, nodding towards the trunk, her instincts flaring. "Maybe it's what we're searching for," Mark replied cautiously, eyeing the glowing chest. The air thickened as they approached it, every breath carrying a scent of dust and decay. Claire knelt before it, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the box's weathered surface. "Should we open it?" Mark questioned, a tremor of fear in his voice. "We need to know what's inside." "It might be the truth," Claire said fiercely. "But the truth could be more dangerous than we think," Mark countered, anxiety lacing his words. Claire swallowed hard. The decision weighed heavily on her. The truth, what they had fought for, was it worth the risk? "Whatever is in that trunk, it holds the power to change everything," she said finally, her resolve hardening. She turned the latch. It resisted momentarily, but with a mighty push, it gave way. A rush of wind swept through the room, snatching the breath from her lungs as the lid lifted. Inside, scrolls and photographs lay crumpled together, all illuminated by the eerie azure light. Claire reached in, her heart racing as a sense of foreboding crept up her spine. The first scroll unfurled in her hands, revealing images of the masked figures they were more familiar than she had expected. Faces they once knew, friends, family. "What the hell?" Mark muttered, staring in disbelief. "They're part of it. They've known something," Claire said, the pieces of the puzzle failing to align. A sudden noise jolted them both. The door they entered slammed open, the shadows slipping into the light like silk. "We found you," came the gleeful hiss of one of the masked figures, echoing through the vast chamber. "Nowhere to run, Claire." Another voice joined in, louder, more taunting. Panic clawed at Claire's chest. They wouldn't take them back. Not again. She grabbed a scroll and held it like a shield. "Mark, what do we do?" she asked, fear flooding her voice. "Fight. We can't let them snatch this from us." He stood tall, ready for whatever came next. Just as they prepared for confrontation, a low rumble pierced the air, walls began to shudder. The chamber felt as if it were alive, responding to the intruders. "Get back," Mark shouted, pulling Claire away as the environment shifted ominously. The roof cracked, dust raining down like a storm. The shadows closed in, and Claire felt the ground tremble beneath her feet, spitting loose stones. "We need to get out now? But where?" As panic mounted, one thing remained clear. The revelations they sought were just the beginning, and the true nightmare had only just begun to unfurl. "Will we escape this madness?" Claire questioned, her voice barely rising above the chaos as the shadows lunged forward, eyeing the impending darkness. The fight for truth had morphed into a desperate struggle for survival. What would they uncover amidst the chaos? Would their pursuit of the truth lead to their undoing? The ground shook with a deafening roar, the shadows cascading towards them like a breaking wave. Claire's heart raced as she grabbed Mark's shirt, pulling him toward the nearest exit, the swirling chaos behind them urging them forward. Heavy dust filtered the air, stinging their eyes. Panic surged in Claire's chest, a wild animal clawing for freedom. "Over there," Mark yelled, pointing to a flickering light in what appeared to be a side tunnel, its warmth contrasting with the suffocating chill surrounding them. They dashed through the obscured doorway, just as the thunderous force of the collapsing chamber erupted behind them. The impact sent a cascade of debris crashing down, and Claire ducked instinctively, covering her head with her arms. "Keep moving," Mark shouted, already several steps ahead. Claire followed, adrenaline coursing through her veins, fueling her desperation to escape the darkness they had awakened. The tunnel twisted like a serpent, every corner shrouded in shadows. Claire could hear the echo of the masked figures behind them, their taunts mingling with the sounds of their footfalls. There's nowhere to hide, Claire. Panic surged through her, igniting her fight-or-flight reflex. What did they want? Why this insane obsession with the truth? The glow ahead brightened, illuminating strange symbols painted on the walls, ancient and ominous, spiraling into an unsettling pattern. Claire's breath quickened. This place felt less like a shelter and more like a tomb. She could feel it. Something wicked waited inside. "Claire, look," Mark said as he came to a halt. In front of them stood a massive door pulsing with the same eerie blue light they had followed into the depths. Etched across its surface were those same symbols, throbbing with a rhythm that almost felt alive. Could opening it lead them to safety? Or would it plunge them into a deeper nightmare? Claire's instincts screamed at her to turn away, but a new determination anchored her feet. "We need to see what's beyond that door." "Are you crazy?" Mark protested, eyes wide with disbelief. "We could die opening it, but it could hold the key to stopping all this." Claire insisted, her voice firm, yet doubt crept into her heart like a thief. With a deep breath, she stepped closer, her hand reaching for the intricate handle, crafted of a dark metal that felt strangely warm beneath her palm. "If we don't confront this now, it'll haunt us forever." Mark paced anxiously behind her, wringing his hands. "I don't know, Claire. The last time we chased after answers, look at where it got us." Ignoring his fear, Claire pressed down on the handle, feeling the moment stretch like an elastic band ready to snap. The door shuddered, splitting open with an otherworldly groan. Gritting her teeth, she pushed it wide and stepped into the light. Inside was a dazzling chamber filled with artifacts radiating powerful energy. In the center was a pedestal, upon which lay a heart-shaped crystal pulsating with the same hypnotic glow they had encountered before. It wasn't just a stone, it was alive. "Claire." Mark's voice trailed off as he took in the spectacle, his fear momentarily forgotten. "What is that?" he asked, stepping forward. I think it's the heart of this place," Claire murmured, a mixture of awe and dread flooding through her. The air around them throbbed with electricity, crackling with an energy that sent jolts through her body. Suddenly, the chamber rumbled as the shadows they had escaped from coiled back around the door, dark tendrils creeping toward them, hungry. They had not evaded their pursuers just yet. "Claire, we need to grab it and go," Mark shouted, urgency threading through his voice. But just as she reached for the crystal, a low voice echoed from the depths of the chamber. "You should not have come here. You will never leave without the truth." Mark and Claire stopped, their hearts pounding in sync. Claire's mind raced as she turned to Mark, the gravity of their choice sinking in. What truth were they about to unleash? As the shadows coalesced into figures, their intentions as murky as ever, one thing was certain. They had awakened something that wouldn't rest until it had its due. What awaited them on the other side of that shimmering truth? And would they escape, or would the secrets buried within consume them both? The dark figures emerged, their shapes contorting in the surreal glow of the chamber. Claire felt a chill wrap around her spine, her instincts screaming that they were not here for a discussion. Mark stepped closer to her, fear plastered across his face. "Run," Mark shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Before Claire could react, the shadows lunged toward them, their fingers stretching like claws. She barely dodged one as it grazed her arm, cold and clammy, sending a shudder through her entire being. She grabbed Mark's hand and sprinted toward the pedestal, glancing back as the figures closed in, their eyes glowing with malevolence. "What do we do?" Mark gasped, his breath hitching as he stumbled over the uneven floor. The crystal pulsed mightily, as if calling out to them amidst the chaos. "Maybe it can protect us," Claire shouted, her desperation pushing her forward. They raced to the pedestal, her heart pounding louder than the thunderous motion of their pursuers. The air crackled with energy as they reached the pedestal, and Claire pressed her palms against the crystal. A surge of warmth flowed through her, filling the gaps of her fear. The shimmering light enveloped her, and she felt a strange connection, as if the crystal was not just a stone but a vivid memory etched into her very soul. "Claire, what is happening?" Mark shouted, a mix of awe and dread in his voice. "I don't know," she screamed back, her voice barely carrying over the rumbling shadows. The figures hesitated, held back by an unseen force as the light intensified. It was breathtaking, but it felt like a double-edged sword, beautiful yet dangerous. Claire closed her eyes, focusing her energy, and whispered, "Show us the truth." The moment the words escaped her lips, bright waves of power erupted, sending pulses through the chamber that felt like a heartbeat from another world. Visions flashed before her. Memories of a broken world, whispers of secrets that shouldn't have been uncovered, and faces twisted in agony. Her throat tightened as she glimpsed moments of pain that seemed too real. Mark gripped her shoulder tightly. "Claire, you can't let it take you." But the visions bore her deeper, their gravity unwavering. She gasped as she saw fleeting images of people demanding answers, wielding truths that only brought agony and loss. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she realized what truth was beckoning them. It wasn't salvation. It was a curse the truth could shatter everything they thought they knew. "Stop," she choked out, shaking her head fiercely. She had to wrestle herself free before the shadows overwhelmed her. "I won't let it take me." In a moment of defiance, Claire yanked her hand away from the crystal. The dazzling glow dimmed instantly, and the chamber filled with an eerie silence. The shadows convulsed, their forms reeling back, revealing faces twisted in rage. Suddenly, the voice that had echoed earlier rumbled out again, deeper and more menacing. "You think you can deny the truth forever? You will pay for your defiance." Mark stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body. "We're not afraid of you," he shouted, voice steady despite the threat closing in. But fear shuddered through Claire's limbs. What lay ahead? Were they destined to face the wrath of these vengeful spirits? The figures hissed and coiled, ready to strike. Claire glanced back at the crystal, the pulse weakening. Time was running out. The only way forward was fraught with uncertainty and danger. "Hold on," she cried, as she grabbed Mark's hand again. They had to leap into the unknown, whatever fate awaited them. They would confront it together. With a final deep breath, she dashed back toward the heart of the chamber, the truth looming ahead like a storm. Would they unravel the secrets of the shadows, or would they become part of the haunting tale echoing within these walls? Only time would tell what awaited them as they hurtled forward into the darkness, their lives hanging by a thread. The crystal's light flickered weakly as they raced deeper into the chamber. Claire's heart pounded, each beat echoing like a drum in her ears. The oppressive presence of the shadowy figures pressed in around them, the air thick with dread. It felt as if the walls themselves were closing in, each step sending tremors through the ground beneath them. "Claire!" Mark yelled, his voice laced with urgency. "What do we do? We can't keep running forever." She darted her gaze around frantically. The shadows writhed closer, cold breath brushing against her skin like ice. Everywhere she turned, the faces of the damned returned her gaze, mouths twisted in silent screams, eyes burning with resentment. "We need to find a way to fight back," Claire shouted back, desperation curling her words. She remembered the overwhelming warmth that surged through her when she touched the crystal. "Maybe we can harness its power. But how? We can't just stand here." Mark's voice cracked, panic flooding through him. They stumbled upon a wall covered in etchings that glimmered faintly in the dim light. Each symbol pulsed as they touched it, resonating like a heartbeat. It felt alive, a forgotten language whispering to them. Craig thought quickly. "We need to connect the dots. Maybe it can help." With a trembling hand, Claire traced a symbol that resembled a spiraled sun. Immediate energy surged through her fingertips, igniting the other symbols one by one. Light erupted, illuminating the chamber in an ethereal glow. The shadows recoiled, their forms twisting in fear. "Keep going," Mark urged as he pressed his hands against another symbol. The walls vibrated with energy, the inscription swirling like smoke in the air. As the luminous pattern spread, Claire could hear faint whispers carried on the wind, voices begging for release. They spoke of betrayal, loss, and despair. A wave of regret crashed over her, weighing heavily on her heart. "They're trapped here, we have to help them, Mark. They deserve peace." But Mark hesitated, eyes wide with fear. "What if they turn against us? We can't trust them." Claire's nails dug into her palms. "What choice do we have? If we don't try, we're dead anyway." As she touched another etching, a loud crack echoed through the chamber. The shadows screeched, their fury erupting like a storm unleashing its wrath. The walls trembled, and pieces of stone tumbled around them. "Claire, hurry!" Mark shouted, eyes darting toward the encroaching darkness. She felt the weight of time pressing down, each tick of the heartbeat like echo pushing her closer to decision. With trembling resolve, she pressed her palm firmly on the last imposed symbol. Instead of fear, she summoned compassion. Let them go. She called into the chaos, her voice strong, unyielding that a blinding light flared, erupting from the symbols, bathing the chamber in warmth that pushed the shadows back, if only for a moment. Faces twisted in agony transformed, morphing into expressions of relief. The air thickened as the whispers grew louder, a multitude pleading for release, and then it happened. One of the darker figures lunged, understanding their moment to strike. It surged toward Claire, relentless. Mark leaped forward, throwing an arm around Claire. No, he yelled, invoking strength as they braced together against the darkness. The light faltered, leaving them vulnerable as the figure loomed ever closer. Time froze, and a crushing silence enveloped them, the shadows hissing, their hands just inches away. Claire, Mark cried, determination flashing in his eyes. You have to do it now. Let them go. She breathed deeply, the connection to the crystal shimmering in her mind. With everything she had, she whispered, release the truth and free them. The chamber exploded with radiant light, engulfing the shadows, the cries reverberating in a cacophony of sound. Then darkness fell. As silence reigned, Claire opened her eyes, gasping for breath. The chamber was empty, devoid of shadows. Their voices were silent, and yet she felt something lingering in the air. Did we win? Mark's voice trembled as he scanned the emptiness around them. But something was wrong. A door she hadn't noticed before had appeared at the far end of the chamber. It whispered softly, beckoning them. Where does that lead? Mark asked, fear shadowing his expression. She could sense something intoxicatingly powerful was waiting beyond. Claire turned to face him, her voice a mere whisper. What if the truth isn't what we expected? As they stepped toward the door, a cold wind rushed through, sending chills down her spine. What awaited them on the other side? Would they find salvation or their worst nightmare? Every moment stretched with uncertainty, and with a single push, the door creaked open, drawing them into the unknown. The door creaked ominously as Claire and Mark stepped through, pressing against the thick air that felt alive with anticipation. Instantly, they were enveloped in an otherworldly glow, the oppressive darkness behind them fading like a bad memory. Ahead, an expansive landscape unfurled, a vast field lit by a celestial light neither could comprehend, shimmering in colors that didn't exist in their world. Claire's breath hitched in her throat. Where are we? I think this is the heart of all those hidden truths, Mark whispered, mingling with fear. The tendrils of shadows they had escaped lingered just outside the boundaries of this new realm, but they felt distant, almost muted. What does that mean? Claire turned, urgency tinged in her voice. Are we safe here? A voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once, vibrating through the expanse. You've chosen to confront the truths of your lives. Be prepared, for the light reveals what the dark conceals. Not all truths are easy to bear. As the vibrations subsided, a multitude of images flooded Claire's mind. The faces of friends, family, the moments they had shared both joyous and painfully stark. Each truth shimmered like a reflection on water, waiting for them to grasp it. We need to face them, Claire said, her voice steadying with resolve. The real truths. But what if they break us? Mark responded, a hint of dread slinking around his words. Then we pick up the pieces together, Claire insisted, determination solid in her chest like a drum. With that, they searched the luminous landscape, stepping cautiously through the shifting ground. The air shimmered, and with every step, voices arose, stories waiting to be told. Claire felt as if she were walking through a tapestry of human experience, love, loss, laughter, and sorrow woven into each thread pulsating around them. Remember Sara? Claire asked, stopping in her tracks. What if this is what she was seeking, a way to share stories that had been buried? Mark nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. We need to listen. Maybe it's not just about confronting our truths. It's about understanding everyone's. Suddenly, the landscape shifted, images swirling into focus before them. It was a scene from their lives, a gathering at Sara's once bright home. Laughter erupted around them, but through the smile, Claire saw the cracks. The fear of revealing vulnerability, the guilt of her own denial of the truth, it was all overpowering. The figures of their friends loomed like shadows, but this time they were visible, raw, their emotions undistorted. We wanted to be real, Sarah's voice echoed, tense and uncertain. But we didn't know how, so we pretended until pretending became everything. Tears prickled in Clara's eyes. You were so brave, Sara. We need to talk about everything we buried. We were all scared. The scene transformed again. Memories twisted, morphing into younger versions of themselves during moments of hidden pain, times they laughed together but should have cried, times they held hands but needed to be honest about their struggles. Claire could feel the weight of unspoken words. They clung to her heart like ghostly chains. Mark stepped forward, his voice urgent yet soothing. We need to acknowledge the hurt, honor the struggle. With those words, the space around them brightened violently, each collected feeling swirling in a kaleidoscope of color. Claire grasped Mark's hand tightly. Together, she whispered, their thoughts intertwining with the essence of those around them. Echoing their own stories, the colors exploded into a radiant spectrum. The last of the shadows retreated, revealing a singular figure, the embodiment of their fears, their denials. You've faced the truths, it said, voice deep and resonating with the weight of their choices. Do you accept what you found? Yes, Claire shouted, a surge of conviction rushing through her. We choose to see. The figure hesitated. Then you must balance your pain with forgiveness to yourself and to others if you wish to find peace. Mark nodded, his eyes locked with Clara's. We're ready. We can't let past limits define us anymore. In that moment of surrender, the landscape shifted again, unfurling an open path, inviting them to walk forward. The sun began to set, casting vibrant hues of orange and red, promises light, embracing the end of one journey and the beginning of another. Let us go home, Claire said, hope and peace surging within her. Let us take what we've learned back with us. Hand in hand, they walked toward the waiting light, hearts beating strong with the newfound truth acceptance. As the horizon swallowed them whole, the whispers of stories unbound echoed behind, no longer hidden, no longer feared, but understood. The truth, once a dark secret that haunted them, had transformed into the foundation of their future. And so, the journey of honesty began anew. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and follow along for more exclusive stories. Smash that like button now. It really feeds the algorithm and keeps the good content coming. Flood that comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let us hear all your thoughts. And listen, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.